And if movies is the thing that you like, you are in the best place, and that place is here at the Chronicle Film Podcast, the official film podcast for the People's Movies. My name is Paul. I am your host. I'm also the editor of the People's Movies, and welcome to episode 38, which is our big double episode, Clotilde. Yep, it is the best films and the worst films of 2024. As you know, for last year, it went on a very long time, so we're going to play it safe again. This year, we're going to play it in two parts. And how are you, Clotilde? Clotilde Chinichi, our co-host. How are you?
How are you?
I am doing great. Did you have a good Christmas?
I did. I ate a lot of food, which I found.
Exactly. I did as well, because I had to work the following morning. Anyway, as I said, this is the best films and the worst films. We're going to do it in two parts. So this part is the best films of 2024. And here we are, folks. This is the best films. Do settle in, have a favourite drink, a snack with you, because it's going to be a long one. It's going to be a double one. And we're starting with the best and favourite films. I'm going to start, Clotilde, which one we reviewed in episode 28 of the podcast. That is Robot Dreams. That's the Oscar-nominated animated drama from Spanish filmmaker Pablo Berger. It did go on to actually win the Goya, which is like the Spanish equivalent of the Oscars. This is a little reminder. This is based on Sarah Varon's graphic novel of the same name. And it takes us all the way back to the 1980s New York City. And it's all about a lonely dog who desires a bit of companionship. And that comes in the form of Amico 2000, which is essentially a robot. And start of the film, we get to see how great everything looks great for him. And then they go a trip to the beach and they're having a happy, great time. However, the robot becomes trapped and the dog is very powerless to actually help his new friend, and he's forced to abandon him. The question is, can he get back to help him? This Clotilde, as I said back in time, is a very unconventional animation, because it reminds us also that animation is it's not just for kids, it's for everyone. I found this a very sweet, delightful film, very emotional film, and a very uplifting film as well. You say it refreshes your soul a little bit. Remind me how much also I loved silent film, because it's a dialogue-free film. It just also reminds me of life can be one hell of a roller coaster, up and down, having wonderful times, then some bad times and bits in between. But we always get back and get up, dust ourselves down, get on with life. And it was a bit of a bittersweet ending as well. What did you think of Robot Dreams again?
I really like Robot Dreams as well. Like you said, it's really good to see a movie that's like maybe not as traditional or mainstream. I think, especially for and that has such a powerful message. I think that's why it resonated with so many people. And it's also something so new that I think it's just very exciting to see it. And I feel like when we watch a lot of films, so when you finally get something that really feels different, it's like the best thing ever. So I understand why it's in your films of the year.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's, as you said, very unconventional. It's very unconventional. The film is actually available. A lot of these films, folks that we're reviewing, they're all available now in some shape or form. I don't know, some of us might have an odd film we watched at a film festival. Might be out early next year, but it's worth talking about them a little bit. Yeah, this one is available in all home entertainment forms, Blu-ray, which I've got, in digital format as well. Yeah, it's really good. It's all about loneliness and how we deal with loneliness and all the little things that come in between it as well, and how we try to move on as well. So that is Robot Dreams. So, Clotilde, would you like to tell us your first film on your favourites?
Yes, mine is The Brutalist, which feels very fitting because you just mentioned film festivals. I think The Brutalist is not out in the UK until the first week of January, I think. Sometime in January anyway.
Yeah, early January.
But I got to see it in Venice. It counts for my list. Basically, I count whatever I've seen in the year that's sort of a bit eligible for award season. So yes, I loved it. I think it's like similar to what I mentioned before. It's that feeling when you see something so original and so new that I love it. I really like how The Brutalist, I think for me as well, I watched it when it premiered at the festival, so I feel like I didn't have all the hype that there is around the film now. But I went in basically blind and I didn't know what I was going to see. So I think that's also why I liked it so much, because I didn't know what I was walking into, and I actually didn't have very high expectations. I think
Yeah.
everybody knows by now how long the runtime of the film is. It's about 3 hours and a half, including an interval,
Wow.
thankfully.
Wow.
Yes, it's very long. So I
Yeah.
think naturally when we see these very long runtimes, we tend to be a bit skeptical. But I think The Brutalist is really a film where it was just perfect. There's no moment that feels like too long. There's no scene that I thought could be cut to make the runtime a little bit more accessible. It's such a perfect film. And I think it touches on so many themes and topics that you wouldn't imagine if you just like know the little blurb that I knew, which is basically like it's a story of an architect moving to the US after escaping the Holocaust. And it's such a broad narrative that it ends up being a lot more than just a personal story. It really becomes the portrait of what the US was in the post-war period. And I think it's also like a very interesting critique to the American dream even now. Just because it's set in the past, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a commentary on the present. And I think the Brutalist does it so well because it's not very, it's not very spelled out the way it can be connected to the present. But I think it's very true, and I think it was partially the intention of the filmmaker in that sense. So I really liked it. I think it's excellent from any point of view. The acting is brilliant. The writing and the directing are also very impressive, and I think the editing is especially good for such a long film that doesn't feel as long.
Yeah, it's a film that interests me. Brutalism is a topic of special architecture. When you see the architecture, it looks dull and boring, but it's also interesting at the same time. Does the film go into, it's Adrian Brody in it, plays the designer. Does it get into his life a bit and also a lot into his design work as well?
Yeah, so we sort of follow his life, but it's kind of inevitably intertwined with his work. And I think especially in the second half, I want to say there's a lot of his work. There's a lot of like thought process, which is what I enjoyed a lot. It's like the film doesn't just show you, the art. It's a lot more about what is he thinking when he's designing that, what is sort of like the thought process behind, I don't know, finding the materials or creating a specific shape, which I think for people like me who may not be like super into the style or just architecture in general, it creates like such a compelling narrative behind it because you really see it come to life that you end up hearing about it like either way because you're seeing this sort of monumental work, especially in the second half. And I think it's sort of become there's sort of personal stake in it as well because he's so into his work and you're witnessing so much of what he's trying to do and all the obstacles that he has to face that you kind of have to care. Even if at the
Yeah.
beginning, maybe I didn't particularly care about purchase architecture, but I think that's what the film does best is making you care about what he's doing, about the architecture itself, even if you may not know a lot about it. It's very clear in that sense.
Well, my hometown has several buildings which come under the Brutalist banner. Then next door to me is Glasgow. That has quite a few as well. The Civic Centre in my hometown, which is where the police station is, the council building, and a few other sort of council-run buildings. That is a Brutalist building. And we have a shopping centre called the Piazza. About 15 years ago, maybe less, maybe more, that was like a typical Brutalist type shopping mall, which you would see all around the UK. It was very open with high-rise buildings above it. Usually they're offices, but sometimes they're flats. The Piazza now in Paisley, it's been roofed, but the buildings above it are still there. They're offices. Then the opposite side, at the train station side, they're actually student flats. It's just fascinating to see it. And what it actually does is, I've mentioned before on the podcast, I've got a camera, I like to do photography, and I had an idea, I want to practice a little bit more, and I thought, let's make a little photo zine, and I'm actually going to do it on brutalism, So, but I'm quite keen to look at it, because I've got a one sort of vision of brutalism, but I think the film and learning a little bit more let me know what it's going to be like. Would you say Adrian Brody could be in line for a potential Best Actor Oscar, or at least maybe the BAFTAs?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, there's quite a lot of strong performances this year, I think. At least like two or three come to mind. But for me, at least from like what I've seen, and like it really feels like it's between him and Ralph Fiennes for Clotilde Club. So I'm not sure which way they'll go. Because I feel like it's a bit different than last year, where it felt very clear who was gonna take that award across the award season, really, not just for the Oscars. I think this year it was more like unsure, but I think especially for Aidan Brody, he really sort of carries us through, perhaps more than you could say for other films, in the sense that he's truly the main character. He's the one pushing the narrative for the entire film and sort of carrying the audience. So maybe in that sense, I do see it going more to him, but it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So the thing that interests me was some of the critics who have seen it are calling it a Godfather-esque type film. Would you agree with them?
Sorry, I don't understand that. I mean, I do, but like I do in the sense of like how groundbreaking it is in terms of like aesthetics and what it's trying to do. But in that sense, I think it could be compared to like so many other films that changed the history of cinema, not just The Godfather. In that sense, I understand. I feel like it's really hard to say if a film is going to be like a masterpiece or like be remembered for such and such or be historically relevant while we watch it in the present. But I think for The Brutalist, it really felt like that. It really felt like you were watching sort of like a monumental moment of the history of cinema. That's the only comparison I would make. Like, I wouldn't say that it's like The Godfather in any other way. I think maybe like I see some sort of like lines where it would blur or like, but not really, you know? I feel like there's so many other comparisons that you would make just because it's like about history and it's really a historical epic in many ways. I don't think that alone makes the comparison with The Godfather worth it. Like, I don't really get it. So I wouldn't say that. I would say that, like, in terms of how important The Godfather turned out to be, then maybe, yes, The Brutalist could have impact. But, like, story-wise, really, like, I would compare it to other things that are more, like, historical epic. Because not just The Godfather. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's an interesting concept. Everywhere in the world there is some sort of form, because what I can remember about brutalism, it was all about the time that his design work became very important. It was rebuilding after World War II, and they want governments and councils all around the world wanted to get a type of housing which was quick and effective and easy to build up. And that was where brutalism came into mind. I mean, I live in a high-rise flat. I believe that the design of that comes under brutalism as well. You know, so even today, nowadays, all around the world, you'll probably find some building. It could be like a building you've been looking at and really, really weird and going, that's a really weird design. You know, realising it's what you call brutalism. The thing is, I think he's seen as like the father of the architecture design, but there is other designers out there who did a very, very similar design work. And if you're in anyone who's done sort of like design, be it graphic design, art and design, you name it, any type of design, there's been different movements all through history as well, and they've all played a very important part. So that is The Brutalist. I believe it's out, I think, around about the 20th, 27th of January in UK cinemas. And if anyone's not from the UK or Ireland, I believe it is actually in cinemas just now. Check your local listings. So my next one, I'm going to go for a sequel, which I was going to review as a take two. Unfortunately, I was unable to, and that is Parker Finn's Smile 2. Have you seen it, Clotilde?
I have not. When did that?
It came out, let me just tell you, I've got something up on here. It was, I would say it was a late summer type film because, oh no, tell a lie, October the 18th it came out, so it was sort of autumn time. The first film came out in about 2022 and had Kevin Bacon's daughter in it, Sosie Bacon. She played like a successful doctor, psychiatrist type doctor, Rosie Cotter. So it was first side, where I would say both of these films, the message is very, very similar. It's the success of fame and what it does to you, because in the sequel, it's the music, and it's British actress Naomi Scott who plays, let me see the name, forgive me, her name is Sky Riley, I believe. Sky Riley. And her story, Naomi Scott, people know her from, she was the princess in the live action version of Aladdin.
The Aladdin.
Yes, yes. So you already know she can sing and dance because she is a musician. This time, Naomi Scott's character Sky Riley, she's like, we first meet her and she's the greatest sort of pop star in the world, and she's dancing me, doing all the gigs, and then suddenly, bang, she has an accident. It nearly kills her. A lot of dark secrets start to come out. She was a drug addict. So this comes a year on, back on television to say, I'm coming back, I'm gonna go on tour again, I'm gonna make an album. And so we start to see her starting to release songs and get trained up to be for the sort of the dance sort of segments. You sort of manufacture pop, you like to say. She has all the big dance routines and that. Think of Trap, the sort of woman plays the sort of pop star in that, and M. Night Shyamalan's daughter who plays the sort of pop star in there. She's that type of pop star, and so she's about to embark on a new world tour, and so she's on her way back, and then starts to start experiencing very terrifying and unexplained, explicable events which she can't, and then she starts to get very overwhelmed. And this is how the Grin, as we get nicknamed, comes back in, gets into it. Something happens before that. She goes somewhere. I'm not going to say much about it, just not to spoil it, because it's just about to come out on, actually, it might actually be out now, on home entertainment and digital. You get to see something happen, and this is how she confronts the Grin for the first time, and then you get to see her the downfall, and a lot of dark secrets start to come out, and you don't know what's reality, what's not reality, and a lot of things just spirals out of control. Her mother is like her manager. She's a very controlling manager, and that's played by an actress called Rosemary DeWitt. She's sort of controlling her life, and a lot of things just start to happen in it. A lot of people, when the first film came out in 2022, people were seen as a bit of a novelty, and it was a film where it surprised a lot of people how fun, but how dark and sinister it was as well. This takes everything up to another level. It beats the sort of thing, with sequels. They think, a lot of sequels when they come out, or pre-sequels, whatever, they're very, they let you down a bit. So it's defied the sort of expectations of what people were expecting, and it's absolute bonkers. But there's one scene that's in the trailer, and it reminds me of something out of like Rosemary's Baby. The bit where Rosemary just starts to lose control. I think Rosemary's Baby has got a big influence on this film, and it is bigger. There is a few more jump scares, but it's not a film it's playing just on jump scares, because it's all psychological and it's all mental health type of things, and it's just an absolutely silly film, but a fun film. I've got a couple of horror films on this list, and a lot of times I think horror shouldn't just be playing on jump scares, because the horror genre has got a lot of other subgenres. If anyone loves horror, they know that, and this is one of them. And what I will say is it doesn't offer much as in delivering anything new on the first film. What it does is it just offers you something bigger and crazier and absolutely bonkers, and it's just a fabulous film. It's when you see all these people, you've got no clue what they want to do, and they've got these big cheesy sinister grins on their face. You're like, that would scare the heebie-jeebies out of anyone. So you haven't actually seen this. So if you like horrors, yeah, I would recommend seeing that. So that's Smell 2. So Clotilde, what's your next film on your list?
I mentioned already, but it's Conclave. I loved it so much. And this one has come out in UK cinemas, I believe. I don't think, actually, I don't know if it's out as we speak, or if it's run the cinemas already, but it's definitely worth watching. I really liked how it builds the tension. I feel like me and also everyone like in my cinema when I watched it, we're on the edge of our seats for the whole time, and that's just great. I think it was really hard to do because it's a film about the conclave, and I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily care about it that much. But the way it delivers the stakes and the stakes they stay like super high is it's such an interesting thing how they did it, because I think it's not just the writing, it's also like the acting, and the music also helped a lot. I think especially in this film, and the editing. It's just very interesting. I think it's very well delivered. The setting as well is quite small in a way, because obviously all the characters stay in the same place, they can't leave. And I think that normally would make it harder to just make something beautiful and interesting to watch. But the way the film uses the setting is actually very interesting, because it's showing us a lot of the place where they are, even though they obviously couldn't film in Vatican City. But they recreated it really well. And they use sort of like the iconic paintings and architecture of it really well. It's very well integrated into the film in a way that makes it also just very exciting to watch, not just for the plot, for the visuals as well. I really like the film. I think it could be a relatively big contender at the Oscars or just at award season, especially I think, for the big categories like director and writers, but also with the acting ones. I think Ralph Fiennes is so good in it. Stanley Tucci is great as well, although that would be, but there's a lot of really good performances, because the characters are so complex as well. And it feels like you're learning more about them as the film goes. I feel like until the third act, you don't really know who they are, and there's always something that's going to surprise you. So that's also something I really enjoyed, and I think speaks to how good the performances were and how layered they made these characters.
Conclave we're talking about, innit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. See when you said it from there, my mind went blank. My apologies. Yeah, it's on my list as well. Yeah, we reviewed it in the last episode of the Chronicle, and as I've got moment up, we both loved it. You really did like it. I enjoyed it as well. The thing that I liked about it is, at the moment, we're in an era which comic book movies dominate cinemas. I'm not saying I don't like or the comic book movies are bad, because they have got good ones, but at the moment many of them are recently have been not very good. And then obviously studios, especially Marvel and Disney, they have endless spin-off films and spin-off TV shows. And I think all they're doing is encouraging lazy writing, all because it's just a name. Maybe it's a character from one of these films or a brand, and as soon as you get that brand in, fans will just flock to the cinemas or go online to watch it. Star Wars is a perfect example of how to bleed dry a fantastic franchise, which I think, sadly, since the original films, has been going down the way. Don't get me wrong, there's been an odd good thing in between that, but nothing absolute spectacular. I think it's also down to the early days when a lot of these movies started, the comic book movies especially, started to come out. They were portrayed as a perfect blockbuster. And the thing was about them was, at the beginning, some of them were fantastic, but what they do is bums on seats in cinemas. And that's why you could go to your local mainstream cinema and say they've got 10 screens and 7 of them will show you all these movies, and the other 3, it's the rest of the films fighting, which is a shame, because it prevents many of these good non-comic book movies like Conclave getting a chance to get some screen time. Because I also think these people go here, don't get me wrong, I like going to these movies as well, but I don't think I'm brainwashed to think that is all that I watch is characters and capes or with powers, and everything else is not worth your time. I'm more of if it catches my attention, and that's what I loved about Conclave. That was a fantastic example of if you were going to watch a movie outside this movie, what I liked about it was, as I said, it's actually doing a lot better than expected, because when we reviewed it, it just came out. It's a slow, as I said, it was a slow burning, tension-filled drama, which reminded me a lot of Thomas Alfredson's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. That's the version, I think it was 2011, it came out with Gary Oldman. I mentioned that in the review, and I've just learned something today. Ironically, Peter Strawfan, he was the co-writer of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but he was also the co-writer of Conclave. How weird is that? And I talked about that movie without actually knowing that, So if you think about it, it's sort of right where you get his pace. The other writer was the man who actually wrote the book that Conclave's based on. Robert Harris, I believe. Yes. Yeah. And as I said, it's a film. It's not. It's as much about the drama, but it's also a political thriller. Plenty of intrigue in there. And a very murky world. Dark secrets. Obviously, as the Catholic Church leaders pick the pontiff. I think it's also questions the church's place in modern society, and an institution which, as we learn, runs as much like a business. Does it embrace modernity, which Stanley Tucci's character in this film wanted to embrace, and started to embrace, obviously, other religions, respect them, have a mutual respect, go backwards into the Dark Ages. I think as much as a test in your faith, and you can sort of maybe look at it not necessarily as a faith of someone that's maybe Catholic, myself and yourself. It could be just testing your faith in general as well. And you're absolutely right, the performances are absolutely brilliant. I mean, Ralph Fiennes, fantastic, brilliant performance there. Same with Stanley Tucci and Isabella Rossellini. She was fantastic as well. Conclave, I really liked it. It's definitely up there. Clotilde, I forgot to mention at the beginning, the films that I'm going to mention in this list, and the worst films, I'm not doing them in order. They're just films that I've liked or don't like. What about yourself? Are you the same? Are you doing it the same way? Have you done these in order of how you like the films?
I'm just doing them in order because I have my list in front.
Yeah. I do have a list, but it's the order I'm doing. I'm not actually doing it in that order. So, is there anything else you'd like to say in Conclave?
I think we summed it up.
Excellent. So it's my next one. I am going to go Irish. I'm going to go kneecap. The episodes that I've done for Chronicle, I have not swore at all, but I want to swear because this is an absolutely belter of a movie. I was actually surprised by the reaction. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear my accent. I'm from Scotland, and I'm not from Glasgow, but I come from very close to Glasgow. And if anyone knows Glasgow or Scotland, even, I would say in general, we can at times be a little bit political and unfortunately bigoted with religions and that. This is set in Northern Ireland, and I was absolutely surprised at how well received this film. I was where I sit in the screen it was in. It's a seat I like to sit when I'm reviewing films, when it's films that I don't see as a press screening. And no one walked out. There's a certain bit. Have you seen this, Clotilde, Kneecap?
I have. I've actually seen it twice. I really liked it as well.
There's a certain bit. If anyone knows me, I support a certain football team. I won't say what football team it is, but the other team does get mentioned in it. I mean, I was talking about swearing. One of the characters says this other team, and he gets chased by certain, I'm going to give it away, orangemen chase him, and it's absolutely funny. And the thing is, what I will say is, Clotilde, it actually pokes fun at both sides of the political divide in Ireland. I don't know if you noticed that, but it definitely does. So I'll give you a little premise on it, just if anyone hasn't seen it. If anyone's got Prime Video, it's part of Prime Video at the moment, so if anyone wants to watch it, that's where to go. And it's winning all this the BIFA Awards, the British Independent Film Awards. I think it won 8, maybe more. It won all the main awards. It was nominated for 14. That's absolutely brilliant. Apologies, folks, if you're wondering what I'm doing. I'm reading through some notes because there's a while since I've actually seen it. So you might hear the odd page flick or clicks of the mouse, So this one, I'm not going to go pronounce the names of some of the actors, or I'll maybe give them. So it's directed by Rich Pepiak, and it's set up like a sort of docudrama in a way. The one person people will recognise in it is Michael Fassbender. He plays a bit of a pivotal role in for one of the characters. So it's set in Belfast. It's if you like to say, it's all based in the Northern Irish hip hop trio Kneecap. It's two friends, young friends, so we get to see a bit of the story of them, how they build up, just to set up the story of them. It opens up to show how life is in Belfast. And these boys, they will only speak Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. This is where Kneecap comes into it as well. They're more promoting Irish Gaelic, the original traditional language of Ireland. And it's all about them setting up the band, but they also get a translator in who's a local teacher. He obviously translates for them, and then obviously he starts to get involved in them and starts to learn the cause. His wife, she's a big she's a protester of promoting to get the language done, but something happens where their views go separate ways as she gets more political, and it's just. It's all, as I said, it's all about Irish language. At the time, it says there's only about 80,000 native Irish speakers and about 6,000 do live in Northern Ireland. They're just average messages. So it's all about the promotion of indigenous languages. I know it might sound very weird saying that for something that's just across the water, a language which is just across the water in Northern Ireland. But it's all about the determination of getting their voices heard. It is a comedy. A lot of things happen. I did mention one there. The reason why one of the boys' characters is his father, it was a renowned terrorist, Arlo, who's played by Michael Fassbender. I'm not spoiling any here, ladies and gentlemen. It's just they do sort of mention that anyway in the trailer. These boys, they just want to go out and smoke dope, sing songs about the language, and get into trouble with the police. It's a hard film to describe without giving much more away. It's absolute bonkers. Actually, Clotilde, I'm going to let you say your thing and see if there's anything you can maybe add to it.
I loved it. I didn't know anything about Kneecap before I watched it. But it was so good. I think, yeah, the first time I watched it was as part of Sundance London, which sort of takes some of the best films of Sundance to London, which is great. And then I rewatched it because it was actually a surprise film for the All Nighter Picture House, or one of the surprise films. And I think it was so much fun. I think it's the most fun I've had in the cinema in a long time. And it holds up on a second viewing as well because it's just as funny, if not more. And there's such a cool thing about sort of like laughing with everybody in the cinema. I know it's on Prime Video, which is great. I think it's also like a really fun film to watch in a cinema with a big crowd because it's great to see how people are picking up on different things, or if they're picking up on like something that maybe you didn't pick up on. It just makes the experience, I think, a little bit better, as often, is the case with watching movies at the cinema. But I loved it. I thought it was so fun, and also just an interesting, like a good way to learn more about Kneecap and the music for people like me who didn't really know much about it. So yeah, it's great. It's very close to being like in my top 10 or top 15 because it's fun of it, and it's so different. I think what we were saying as well before, it's not even like a clear genre. It's sort of a biopic, it's sort of a docudrama. It's so many things at once, but it works really well.
Yeah, it really does. It's just a fabulous film. My friend who is a big Rangers fan, he's not into the sort of political side of the dark side of what comes with people who support his team. But he knows all about it, and he sat down and he said that's the funniest film I've ever seen, and I agreed with him. I said it doesn't it shows the dark side of both sides of the political fence, but also makes fun of them, especially one of the characters. There's a lot of liaisons, let's say, with a young lady who we find out is a daughter of someone who doesn't like him. I won't spoil it because when you find out who it is, it makes what they do as well. What I will say, folks, there's a lot of swearing in it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're easily offended, maybe don't watch it. But if you just don't care, you're ever to see a film just go absolutely crazy in a fun and entertaining way, I would watch Kneecap. They were actually in the UK recently. I think it was to do with the BIFA Awards, which I think they happened at the start of this month. And then they toured around. They were here. They played in Glasgow. I think they played a couple of sold out gigs in Glasgow as well. And there's it's just when you think about it, you just laugh and you smile. And I think that's the whole point of a film, to bring out these emotions, be it happy, be it sad, you cry and go, I'm glad I watched that. Be it if it was a sad ending or a happy ending or a neutral ending. And this is what Kneecap does. So I think we can say we both really loved Kneecap. So Clotilda, what is your next film?
My next film is The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which is another festival film. This one I saw in Cannes, and again, I didn't know much about it before watching it, but I did know the sort of history of production, which I think makes the film even more impressive because the director, who's from Iran, and the movie is sort of a reflection on Iran, and it's very critical of it. And he was actually accused of just being anti-state by Iran, and they were going to imprison him, but he managed to escape. This was all like during the Cannes Film Festival when the film was about to premiere as well. And I remember there was a lot of uncertainty of whether he could escape the country or not, find refuge elsewhere. He ended up going to Germany, I believe, and sort of saved himself because he would have had to like give up his property and all of his belongings, and he was fined a ridiculous amount of money. So that I think sort of feeds into why this film has become really popular as well, because there's such a really crazy history behind the production if you think about it. I think we were very close to not seeing this film, and I know it has been censored in some countries. I don't think it's even being shown in Iran at all by the current government, but it's such a powerful film, not just for the story, which I really like, but there are some technical elements. I don't want to spoil too much because I think it's best if you walk into it without knowing. But there are some elements that it brings in towards the end that it adds such a level of documentary feeling to it. It makes you think that, this is not just a fictional story, actually a reflection on the country itself and on its history. I just really liked how the film did that within the sort of confines of a fictional story, but also sort of never forgetting what it actually is trying to say. And I think that's why it's a powerful film. So I really liked it. I know it's the German entry for Best International Feature Films at the Oscars and Golden Globes. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like this year there's a lot of international films that I really liked, so I don't even know what to hope for, because a lot of them are like some of my favorite films of the year. I think it's been a really good year for international film. Maybe just because I've seen more by doing film festivals, or just because they're really, really good. But this one is stood out to me from the moment I saw it in Cannes, because I think the story and the way the story is told is so unique and special, and also very important. It's a very urgent film, and I think you understand that the more.
Yeah, yeah. It's a film I've heard of. I really don't know much. Is it a documentary?
No, it's a fiction film,
Okay, a
but
fiction film. Yeah,
I,
yeah,
yeah, I think it has, like, to me, it has some elements of documentary, but I won't say too much.
yeah.
I don't think it's out in the UK yet.
I think I'm not 100% sure. I'll be honest. I've heard of it, and if the name of the film doesn't attract you to go, what's that about? What can be? I've had
Yeah.
emails for the American promotion of it, which I think the
Okay.
film is in America. I'm not you. I'm not 100% sure if it is. It's probably, is it going to be like a film? Maybe you have to go like an art house cinema or a little indie cinema to
I think
actually.
so. I mean, it does depend how the film does as well, because, if it does well during award season, it might be that more cinemas put it on. But it definitely feels like that type of film. I think even in the US, it came out, but I don't think it was like, your AMC or like, I don't think it
Yeah,
had that distribution, unfortunately.
yeah.
And it's great. And I think it won an award in Cannes, but I'm not remembering the name. It wasn't the Palme d'Or, it was another award that was given.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's been quite a few trailers come out. I think the Italian one came out. Is it? Forgive my pronunciation. Is it Vermiglio, the one that's set up in the
Yes.
mountains? Yeah,
Oh, I
that.
like that too. That one was good.
It's out next month.
Oh,
It's
really?
in the UK. Yeah. There's the Brazilian one. I think that came
Yeah.
out.
Oh, that's also my list. I love that one.
Yeah, and the director, it's his first film since he did, was it On the Road? Maybe Vermiglio might be one we can maybe do as a part of a future podcast or a
Yes,
take two. It'd be an
that would
interesting
be
one.
good.
Maybe what we'll do is, like Jenna said, if you have been following the Chronicle Film Podcast, obviously we're doing the big episode or episodes today. In a month or two time, we'll probably do the awards one, which like this episode we're doing now, and that episode, they were the two most popular episodes people were downloading. So maybe we can maybe do it then for when we do the BAFTA Oscars preview one, maybe have a wee look at it then in more detail.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, as in the film, I really don't know much about it. I've heard of it. Anytime I've been looking at film festivals, I've been seeing it's high up there. Would not at all be surprised if the film isn't out yet. It's not out for a month or two. It might appear in something like the Glasgow Film Festival, which is the next film festival in the UK, big film festival in the UK, which the People's Movies and will be there, and hopefully might review a few films here on the Chronicle. Yep, so is there anything else you'd like to say about the film, Clotilda?
I think that's it. I think we have more films to get.
Well, I know I said was a documentary. My next film is actually a documentary, and it recently made its TV debut on BBC, but it's now in the BBC iPlayer. But I watched a cinema preview from Attitude Films, and that is Made in England. The films of Paul and Pressburger. This is directed by David Hinton, but it's narrated by the one and only Martin Scorsese, who also is an executive producer on this film. If there's going to be a film that inspires a master filmmaker like Scorsese, it's going to be about Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. And anyone that's seen this, you can see it's a bit of a personal journey for Scorsese, but it's also, you can see it as a bit of an education into these very influential filmmakers. I mean, it's universally known that Scorsese is like a fountain of knowledge when it comes to all things in cinema. And he is a master of film himself when it comes to, obviously, actually his craft, and he definitely knows what he's actually talking about. And Made in England first showcases, as I said, he narrates it, and he showcases how the young Marty, when he was very young, he suffered from asthma. So obviously his parents, when they let him go out, like kids his age at that time, when he's diagnosed, go out and play in the street. So instead, he was left inside, and his parents had something luxurious. Even nowadays, it can be seen as luxurious. They had a television, which was in the days was a big luxury. In 1940, he was exposed to an adventure film called The Thief of Baghdad, which starred Sabu, who was like a massive star at that time. It was weird because the film had 5 directors, but one of those directors was Michael Powell. So he was enthralled in what he just watched. And in the US at the time, British films were a big thing, especially the daytime. They weren't always the best films in the world, but British films, Marty loved them. And when he was age 10, he was obsessed by the Paul and Pressburger films. And Paul and Pressburger, they actually first met on the set of Corda Films. I think it was Alexander Corda Films of London in 1939, in a set of a film called The Spy in Black, which Paul, he was set to direct it, and Pressburger was going to write the script for it. A few years just before that, Pressburger, who was, forgive me if I'm wrong, he was Jewish, so he just escaped from a Nazi-occupied pre-World War II Germany in 1995. And Paul, he sort of described their first meeting as a case of love at first sight, and Pressburger himself saying that their first meeting was very spellbound here. And sort of from that meeting, the pair of them, they're going to release some of the most influential films in cinematic history. For example, we had like Red Shoes, where the pair directed, they also produced, but they also co-wrote them. In the days, that was a bit of a rarity. That was in the early to mid 40s. And then there was obviously Pete and Tom, which is considered the first sort of psychological slasher. Some people try and say it's Hitchcock's Psycho, but that came out a few years after. And then in between them, you had the Black Narcissus. Apologies, I can't say that right. And this was like a lesson to anyone that wants to be a cinematographer. But it was also, I didn't realise until I saw this film that it was the only film that they both created which was seen as a non-original story, because all their other films they created from scratch, and plus this was a success. But also there was The Life and Death of Colonel Blunt. That was a masterstroke, and that sort of gave you a lesson how to sort of tell a story in editing. But there's also, it's highly influential for Martin Scorsese, especially in Raging Bull. Have you seen Raging Bull?
I'm not. I want this on my list.
Yeah, there's a scene in it. Robert De Niro's coming out as Jake LaMotta, and he's coming out to the ring to have the match. And the way the actual scene's done, I won't spoil it. The way the scene is actually done was inspired by a scene of something that happens in the Life and Death of Colonel Blunt, because if anyone that's seen Raging Bull, it's not about the fight, it's about everything else in between it, So that actually inspired it. But the Paul and Pressburger influence obviously taught Scorsese, how the relationship between sort of film and music. And I've mentioned it before on here, and I mentioned it in any reviews that I actually do, how important the relationship, the two things are together. Because without one, I think sometimes the other will fail and vice versa, And Red Shoes, back to Red Shoes again, and that sort of had told you how to tease sort of mystery and the mystery and the hysteria of films. But I don't know if you realise, Clotilde, it was Michael Paul was probably the two men actually the biggest inspiration, Martin Scorsese, because Martin Scorsese asked Michael Paul to come on board for Main Streets. And the thing with Paul was he understood his vision, what he was trying to deliver in this, and because of this, there was a relationship. I believe it lasted about 20 years or so, but it lasted even longer because Thelma Schumacher, Scorsese has worked for 50 plus years, has been his editor through all his big films. She was married to Michael Paul for 5 or 6 years as well, so the connection goes really, really back. So, have you seen this film, Clotilda?
I have not, but it sounds really interesting. I think anytime Marcus Scorsese talks about films, it's just a treat. So I
Yeah,
definitely have to.
yeah, it was. I was just enthralled and sitting watching, going, "Wow, this is." Just seen some of these films on the big screen, because obviously we're at our age. I know I'm older than you, but both our age groups, and even one before mine, a lot of times any of these films, they probably saw them on a small screen, and these films were made for the big screen, and it was just like, wow, absolute wow. It was just, I remember the press screen, and everyone, and there's one film journalist there, I won't say if they're he or she, they write for one of the, at the time they wrote for one of the big mainstream newspapers, and even they were going, wow, this is fantastic. It's a wonderfully crafted, reflective movie, documentary. And I think if any cinephile or wannabe filmmaker, I think they really should sort of check it out. I mean, what do you think of documentaries, Clotilda, as in maybe seeing them on the big screen? Should they be seen in the big screen, or should they be seen in the small screen, or both?
I think I love documentaries. I think if you can, anything is worth watching on a big screen. Most films are. Um,
Yeah,
it depends on the documentary. I think some documentaries are more like aesthetic than others, maybe.
yeah,
And you have the documentaries that are sort of like focused on the information more. So, it depends on that as well. But from the sound of it, like this documentary about cinema, and I think therefore it should be watched on a big screen because like that's the whole point of cinema, isn't it?
I know, I agree, It depends what the film is all about. Like something like this, Made in England, I believe it's something that should be seen in the big screen because it's about something that was in the big screen many years ago. It's something about a film that we might be reviewing in the next episode. I won't mention it. It's I think the film you know what I'm talking about, Clotilde. We both have seen it. I don't know. You might have it on your list. It's coming out in January. That film, the way it's shown, yeah, that has like, a message where it could easily been seen in the small screen, but also the way it was presented could be seen in the big screen. Yeah, there's an argument for that, but certain things about, about if it's about a true crime or a campaign against big uh, companies for the failure of safety or what they've done or have not done, yeah, there's an argument that actually be shown in the small screen. So that is Made in England. The film's a Paul and Pressburger. Clotilda, what is your next movie?
That's on my list. Is I'm Still Here. I did
Okay.
say I really like International. This one is just it's so good. I cried a lot when I watched it. It's not obviously a very happy film. I don't think any of these are really,
Yeah,
but it's a really good film. It's based on a real story that I think a lot of people in Brazil would be familiar with. I wasn't. I think with the sort of international community, maybe we know about it a little bit
yeah,
less. But it's about Rubens Paiva. He used to be a politician turned, I think, architect, something like that. That had nothing to do with during the military dictatorship. And he was basically one day taken from his home and never came back. This is the actual sort of historical event that the film depicts. It kind of sets a bit before that and follows this whole family through this tragedy, but also I think it's a lot about the wife and the female character and her fight to keep her family together, but also to get the truth about this because a big part of what happened to him and all the people that the military dictatorship in Brazil targeted was that like nobody knew or nobody would acknowledge what happened to him. So she really fought to sort of have his story told, but just also have the government recognize what happened to her husband. So it's a really good film. I think it depicts the time period really well and the sort of political and cultural atmosphere in Brazil at the time. From the very beginning of the film, it's very clear, even to those of us who might not know a lot about it. So I really like that because you're immediately kind of immersed in the moment, and I think the director does a really good job of that. I think it's also his first film in a few years. Like I said, it's been a long time that
12 years.
um
12 years it said on up.
well, top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also exciting to see such a accomplished director come back to the screen. And he had collaborated with some of the actors before, especially with Fernanda Torres. And she's sort of like the main character really, because she plays the wife. I think the fact that they worked together before is why they're both so good. You can tell that they were very comfortable together, which allows her to have this amazing and groundbreaking performance. I think she's amazing in it, and I really hope she gets recognized. I think I'm Still Here has a really good shot at the sort of international feature film category, but I really hope that Fernanda Torres also gets mentioned for, acting categories. I know that it's hard for like non-English films to be nominated in other categories than not the international one, but it's such a good film that I hope.
It's I haven't seen it. Believe it or not, it's actually Altitude Films. It's releasing this as well in the UK. It's coming out on the 21st of February. I think that's before the Oscars. I'm not 100% sure when the Oscars are out this year.
Yeah, I think it's before because the Oscars are the first week of March, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct because I'm usually covering the film festival at the time, and actually I've been able to watch it as well when
Mhm.
it came on because it's now on ITV rather than Sky Movies as well. Yeah, I liked his last film, which was On the Road. That was Christian Stewart. Forgive me, I can't remember the rest of the cast and that film. That was all based on the is it the Jacques Chirac book, Big Americana book, where they travelling across America and sort of post-World War, I think it was post-World War II America. It's sort of one of those books where next to Ernest Hemingway, those sort of people who like to travel across countries and rough it out sometimes or do little odd jobs town by town. These are the books that they like to live by, and I think also including Jacques Chirac's, I think The Odyssey is another one. These books. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really know much about it. I'm sort of looking at ladies and gents, the trailer is on the People's Movies website. So just click on the name of the film. I'm Still Here if you want to have a look at it. Yeah, it looks absolutely fantastic. I love how. I know I'm not the biggest fan of period movies, as in like, i.e., the sort of era of the sort of Bridgerton type films. I'm not always the biggest fan of them. I like the period movies, as in like decades ago, that type of thing. Don't get me wrong, I do like this sort of sandals and swords type movies as well, apart from Gladiator 2. Oh, I'm really interested to see this. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this film, Clotilda?
Now, I don't want to spoil you.
Yeah, but you definitely, so it's on your list. So my next movie, it's a movie, I'm not really unsure if it's had a UK release yet. It was Oscar movie. It was the Czech Republic's Oscar entry at this year's Oscars, the one for the best feature not in English language, the one at the Zone of Interest, but basically went on to win. As I said, I watched it at the Glasgow Film Festival, and it was its UK premiere, and it's the film Bratti, or Brothers is the English name. It's Thomas Masson. When it comes to film festivals, and it happens all around, obviously Glasgow's a slightly smaller film festival, and some now regard, because it was happened, the demise of Edinburgh. Edinburgh was always seen as, after London, as the next sort of biggest major film festival. I believe Glasgow's sort of challenging that now, because obviously the demise of Edinburgh, it missed a year or two there. It's rebuilding itself. Usually the opening closing films, they sell really quickly. Rarely films in between will sell it really quickly. But this film, I think, 2 screenings and both sold out quickly, and they ended up, I think, opening another 2 screenings. And they don't do that for a lot of movies, especially for really unknown movies. And a lot of people didn't know this movie. This is a post-World War II sort of Cold War based action. It's actually a war action drama, and it takes us back to 1953 when the Czech Republic was Czechoslovakia. And then obviously the country sort of come under the iron fist of the communist regime at the time, communist Russia. It's a sort of a biopic of sorts, because Thomas Mazin, it's all about his family. And his family's story is very, very well known of sort. And it's all about the brothers Joseph and Radek Mazin, who are played by Oscar Haas and Jan Nedbal. And with them and a couple of several other actors in it, they were all friends through school. They go on to start this anti-communist sort of league, I think they called it, to fight back against the sort of reign of terror that the communist regime had on the country and its sympathisers. And they created a bit of a terror campaign to sort of disrupt things, you know. And in 1953, it is based on a true story. Something happens and it ends up being the biggest manhunt for the brothers as they try to escape the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, into Western Berlin, which at the time was occupied by the Americans and the Allies, if you like to say, to get their own freedom. I believe this is regarded as one of the biggest manhunts in modern history, and a lot of people, depending on what side of the fence you were on, a lot of them saw these brothers as heroes, others saw them as murderers. And we do get to see the oppression through this family and obviously their friends and some of their neighbours, which leads to obviously the brothers and their friends to take the action. And the women in the family, they also show their resilience in many ways. And when it comes to war films or films with a very similar narrative, they seem to go more for the male perspective, and I thought this was really good because it showed the women were just as strong as the men. Because there's an odd time where one of the male characters is lacking in confidence, to get and do these things, and what this film also does is it shows you the challenges of the sort of family bond and how far they would go, obviously, to survive. It also shows you how the human spirit, how much it can stretch to levels that we never think of. And this film does show you they don't hold back in anything when it comes to sacrificing, getting that sacrifice and freedom. I thought this was a very honest, tension-filled action drama, and it tells obviously how it is without actually covering the film, with melodrama or even covering the brutal side of things of war with cotton wool, because I think that's what a lot of films, especially these Hollywood films, when they do films, it's based on these sort of stories. They sort of wrap it up and they don't want to show the violence, and this one doesn't hide for it. And I wonder if this might have been a reason why it didn't succeed. And then again, I think at the same time, Zone of Interest was winning everything. I actually thought it was very unfair that Zone of Interest was in as a British film, but it was also in as a foreign film, a world cinema.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
No, I'm not saying it didn't deserve to be in them, I didn't realise that if it's a British film, it actually comes under world cinema, which is really weird, because we're talking about, I don't know if you've seen it, and apologies if I've gave away, it's on your list, Santosh, which I believe is the British entry this year, which I think it's an Indian-based film. I'm not going to, I believe is this year's or the next Oscar entry for the British film. Have you actually ever heard of this film, Brothers?
I have, because, oh God, I forgot how, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think it played in London, and it was like a Czech film festival recently. Yeah, it surprised me. It really, really did surprise me. Every year at the Glasgow Film Festival, a country in focus, and it was the Czech Republic. That was this year. The 2025 festival is in Austria, so they're going to show you Austria. So it's always a mix of new films. It's also a mix of retrospective films as well. And it's a really good strand. I've had some absolute fabulous strands over the years at the festival. So yeah. So that is Brothers. So Clotilde, what is your next film, or if you have any?
Yes, I do. It's the room next door, so it's another festival one. I know there was a lot of like criticism about this film, but I personally liked it. I feel like it's like Pedro Almodovar, but it doesn't feel like his film, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think for like if you tend to enjoy his films, you probably wouldn't like the room next door. But if you don't, then I think you will. I know that's weird, but I really liked it. It's obviously very sad because it's about two friends who are reconnecting when one of them going through chemo for cancer treatment. I thought it was so kind of human and profound in the way it touches on such sensitive topics. I understand the social criticism about how it feels like kind of like a bit of an awkward script. I think this is his first feature film in English, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But I think the actresses Tilda Swinton and Julianne Moore, I think they're so good in it and together that they kind of sell you the lines, even the sort of more awkward ones that don't particularly like if you read them on the page, they would read a bit weird. I think they make it like together they make it quite believable and convincing, and the relationship between them is probably the most interesting part of the story. So yeah, I really liked it. I think it won the Golden Lion in Venice as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it did, yes.
So I think I'm not sure, but I think he could play well in awards season. I don't know. I haven't seen it nominated as much like at the Golden Globes, but I think we'll have to see.
As you mentioned, I'm one of these people that are hit and miss with Pedro Almodovar.
Mhm.
I think the only film I really, really liked of his, and I think it's one of the ones I think a lot of his hardcore fans don't really like, is The Skin I Live In with Antonio Banderas, which is probably
Mhm.
considered a horror. I forget the lady who plays. There's a big twist in it. There's an absolute big twist in it, which you don't click until near the end of the film who this lady is. It's a French actress, if I remember rightly, who plays it. Who plays her. She played the villain in, I think, was it the first Wonder Woman film? Yeah, first Wonder Woman film. I really liked that. It was really, really weird film where he's Antonio Banderas is like what they call these people who do all the beauty therapy for these people who want facelifts and whatever. Something happens in the film, and that's the reason why what he's doing to this woman. But gradually throughout the film, you get to learn who this woman is. The question is she? That's all I'll say about that. But that came out about 2011, so I really don't know much about. I've only read it through the reviews. Reviews on on the People's Movies, which Robert Ewan reviewed at Toronto. I believe it's. And somebody said to me, it's like somebody says it. Oh, it's like the Spanish version of that Bette Midler film where she sang that song "Within a Distance," where the two of them are the two of them start. You see the two of them as young friends, and they grow up together, and then some tragic happens at the end.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forget the name of that movie. Is that just somebody talking rubbish to me?
Mhm. I actually
Yeah,
don't know. I think it's what's interesting is also that they kind of break it later in age. So there's this whole sort of first part of the film where they have to kind of not become friends again, but kind of make up for all the time that they were in each other's lives.
yeah.
So I think that's quite interesting as a dynamic as well.
I think what a lot of people are going to hit and miss with this as well is from posting the trailers on the website. Is I believe it's the first story that Pedro Almodovar has not written himself. It's not an original film. It's based on an actual novel, and it's one of those novels. I believe the translation. I don't know if you maybe notice it in any maybe Italian films. It's maybe converted into English or any other language where the translation is not exact same as the original language. And I believe it was quite a tricky film to actually translate to properly what the actual book and theme is saying. And so there's not much I can really say about it because, as it says, I'll probably see if it comes on like Prime Video or Netflix. I'll probably watch it, but it's not a film I would rush out to see because he's got a very precise audience who love him. And I know a lot of people love his sort of campy-esque. It's just a film that's not got the sort of campy-esque sort of side that Pedro Almodovar's very famous for.
I think
No?
it's very weird. I don't know. I think it's in a way, I feel like if I didn't know it was Almodovar, I wouldn't have known. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
it's really not what I think people associate with him. And I don't know if it's because like it's obviously in the English language, which I think most of his like most famous films are in Spanish.
yeah,
Or maybe I don't know because he collaborated with new people, obviously. I don't really know what it is, but I think it's quite interesting. And I think a lot of the people that I spoke to, like in Venice, that didn't like it, it felt like they were expecting something else because you walk into something thinking Almodovar, and I think you have a pretty clear idea in your head.
yeah.
Uh, But it feels like this film doesn't do that. Whatever you would expect from him,
Uh-huh.
not in a bad way, in a good way for me.
Yeah, yeah. Right, so that's Room Next Door.
Hmm.
Yeah, ladies and gents, we've only got a few films to go through. So the next one, ladies and gents, I apologise. I had a major accident with my notes. I deleted them. So
Oh,
as I said earlier on, you might hear a lot of paper rattling, clicks of mouses, because I'm bringing up what I can find of my notes. So my next one is a Sean Durkin film, and that's The Iron Claw. That film is stars none other than Zac Efron. Also stars Jeremy Allen White. He does Is It the Bear on Disney Plus, and Harris Dickinson is in there as well. And this is actually based on a true story. The Von Erich family, and if anyone knows the wrestling, American wrestling, they know the Von Erichs. Uh, it's a very tragic story, but there were some of the in wrestling, going way back to 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even nowadays, there's generations of families rest their sons, even their daughters nowadays, who wrestle. And the Von Erichs are one of those families, but it's a family who have been wrestling since the late 70s, early 80s. And it's a story of the brothers. Zac Efron plays one of the brothers. Actually, the three names that I mentioned, they are the brothers. And Zac Efron, he plays, I think it's Kevin Von Erich. No, yeah, Kevin Von Erich. Jeremy's Kerry, and Harris is David. And it's absolute great family. But as I said, it's a family also tragedies where sadly two of the brothers die. And I won't go into much detail on how they die and whatever. You do learn it in this film. But also the father, he was a very domineering father and coach. And he's like, how I can describe it? He's like like you see in the film, Clotilde, like the big sort of army, the American army generals, and they're plugging into the soldiers, ramming the sort of training that they do. He's very domineering in that, and there's no such thing as a defeat. You always must win, and he beats it out living daylights out when they don't win. And then obviously they grow up, and one of the brothers, David, he's the only one at one point really doesn't want to be a wrestler. I think he wants to be, if I remember rightly, a guitarist, a musician, artist, and this. Lily James is also in this. She plays Kevin Von Erich's wife. She's very good in this. All the brothers are fantastic, and all the acting in this is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot, if you know your wrestling, your American wrestling, there's a lot of familiar names come up in it, and including Ric Flair, and the most electrifying man in wrestling, the Rolex wearing man. And it's quite funny when you see the guy that plays him. He doesn't really look like him, but I can see why they use him, and so there's a bit of humour in it. But it's a very emotional film as well. And I know a lot of Zac Efron films are either at the beginning he was doing those High School Musical films, or his sort of rom-coms, the cheesy rom-coms. And he did a few indie films that sort of try and prove that he can act. This is probably his best film out of there to show he's got acting ability. as well. Jeremy Allen White, he's like the big thing at the moment because of obviously the Bear, and also because he's the grandson of Gene Wilder as well. And Harris Dickinson, he's the British actor who's very well known. He's done a lot of films over his several years. He's appeared. He's been acting. Clotilde, have you ever seen this film?
No, I can't believe I haven't. It's been on my list like since it came out, and I missed it when it came out. So yeah, I need to
Yeah,
check it out. Everybody
yeah.
loved it, I think.
Yeah, what we'll say, folks, is, oh God, it's American wrestling. It's going back to the days of American wrestling before there was WWF became the WWE. There was WCW before they came the WWE, and all your EWs and all the other wrestling companies. The whole America's map was all different companies. So you would see these names that we gradually going to see in the WWF. They could 1 minute wrestling in Georgia, next minute in New York, you name it, it's all around. And even some of the commentators are in there as well. It's an absolutely wonderful film. It packs an emotional punch as well, and I definitely know, obviously, Zac Efron, he can put on the tears, and in this, he actually does put on the tears as well. It's all about masculinity as well, because obviously their dad, the Von Erich dad, he's a very dominating guy and he's a very masculine guy, there as well, and it beats the living daylights out of their boys as well, and it's just sort of how the boys' emotions don't really connect with each other. But you show you how close a family are, tight-knit family are when things happen, are there. It's a very human drama. It's a very straightforward drama. But what happens to the lives of the actual the Von Erich story in there? It's very hard. It's not a film that's going to be looking for awards or anything. It just wants to tell a story. And it's a very, very well told story. And as I said, it's probably Zac Efron's best performance out there. So, Clotilde, did you have any other films you'd like to tell us about?
I do.
Go for it.
My next one is Sing Sing. I have to mention it because it's so good. I also think weirdly it's one of those films that seem to be widely beloved, which is very much not the case usually during the war season, but everyone is also like Sing Sing because
Yeah.
it's a great film. I think the story itself is also very emotional. It's about these Sing Sing comes from the actual prison. If the name sounds familiar, that's why. Um, and it's about this sort of acting group, theater group within the prison for the incarcerated men. And I think it's really beautiful how it sort of shines a light on a reality that many people might not be familiar with in terms of like how people are treated in prisons and how stuff like this can actually help them so much. Because I wasn't aware before going into the film, but it's actually a real program. There's in the Sing Sing prison, there actually is a theater program that helps them and has helped them even after to sort of establish a life after prison when they get out. And I think the beautiful thing was also that a lot of the actors, obviously Coleman Domingo is in it, and he's fantastic. I think he's another one that could very well get the award for Best Actor, as he should, because I think he's been deserving for such a long time. But most of the other actors are actually, ex-prisoners who were in the Sing Sing prison and who were part of that program, which I think adds to the whole thing. And such an emotional depth. So I loved it. I think it's also shot very beautifully, and I would love to see it get recognition, especially for Coleman Domingo, because I think he's so consistent. It feels like every year he's had a great movie, but he's not often recognized for that, and I think he should be.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Robert Ewan, he reviewed it for us at the Edinburgh Film Festival. Quote me if I'm wrong, I believe that was its UK premiere.
I think so.
Yeah, he actually, if you go to peoplesmovies.com, there's actually an interview with the director, Greg Kuder, is actually on there. Yeah, Robert loved it. He loved it. He virtually near enough gave it 5 stars. He said it was a delight, and I have, when I go to work, I walk to work, and obviously it's early hours in the morning. Obviously, I work at my local airport, and I just stick my headphones on and have a podcast. Sometimes it's the Chronicle, just listen to see how good we are or how bad we are. And I listened to Mark Maron's WTF, and he actually interviewed the real man that inspired this, and he just sold the film to me, how fascinating. He told all the story about it, I think we may probably put me off going to see it was probably because does it play like a typical musical?
Not really. I mean, I'm a big musical fan, so I also have like kind of strict rules for what a musical is. So I
Yeah,
would say no. I think Wicked is a musical to me.
yeah. It sounds like it's more like a Amelia Perez type music.
Yeah, I would say that. Also, maybe I think it's less. I feel like Camila Perez for me is quite memorable because of the music numbers,
Yeah,
and I think this one is not. Like it feels a lot more story based, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, maybe if it comes on Netflix or Prime Video, maybe have a wee look at it. Yeah, Colm Domingo. I've said before, I'm a Walking Dead fan. He starred in as one of the main characters in the Fear of the Walking Dead. He was absolutely fabulous for day one. It was one of these characters where you didn't know how to trust him or not trust him. And out of the blue, he had some sort of humanity in him. And then sometimes he was only thinking about himself, I think once one of the season he played the sort of villain when the Fear of the Walking Dead went absolute bonkers and let off a nuclear bomb. Absolute bonkers. I'm not going to explain any more on that side. But he also played in Rustin. That's another film I'm not seeing, but I've got it on
I
my
love
list.
it.
I've
He's
got it
so
on my
good in it.
Yeah, I've got it on my list for Netflix. He's an actor who's always been in the background where, as you
Right.
said, he's out a lot of times. He was in The Colour Purple, which we reviewed earlier here on the podcast, and he was very good in that. He's always been in the next step at Sim. He's going to be up there, and I think this of Rustin should be the film that should get him up there. But I'm glad he's starting to get recognition now, because sometimes yeah, it's great to win, but sometimes just getting the recognition, getting announced as one of the nominees nominated is sometimes just as good as winning. But obviously they do want to win, and I'm so glad that he's getting to see that. So is there anything else you'd like to say on Sing Sing?
I think we covered it.
Right, so we've not got much to go. So I've got obviously we've already mentioned one of my other movies, so I've got about three movies to go. You're
Yeah.
about the same,
Yeah,
yep.
I'm just well,
The next, yep. The next one, I'm going to go dodge that and then come back to it. Next one, we reviewed in episode 27, My Origin. That's Dune Part 2. As Timothy Chalamet as Paul Atreides. Obviously now he's united with, in this one, he's united with a Fremen and Chani, who's played by Zidania. And obviously he's tasked of taking on the conspirators who destroyed his family. And obviously before this film, we get to see his powers start to mature. But at the same time, his visions and nightmares are getting absolute worst. As in the terms, as in where part 2 is, and compared to, say, the David Lynch version, this takes us up to virtually where that ends. Once again, the first film was a slow burner. This is, in a way, is still a slow burner, but what it does is it ups the ante, the scale, and the scale of things, and the scale of it is very epic, and the world building is fantastic, and even the narrative as well, but it's a lot darker and bleaker, and it dives into this mythology building, of Paul Atreides' powers, and the people who live there, and the Fremens, not power, and obviously people who destroyed them. I think many are calling this after we reviewed it, many called this like a downstep. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's gone the up. It set things up nicely for hopefully a third film, and which, if anyone knows the books, it's taken us into a different direction of how Paul Atreides does when it comes to power and revenge. I mean, fabulous film. Anything you like to add to this, Clotilda?
I actually liked it. I didn't think I would because I didn't really like part one.
Yeah.
But I really like part two, I have to say. It was a lot better. I think for me, part one was like a lot of world building, which fair enough. I mean, it was necessary. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it a lot more when it sort of like didn't need to do that anymore and it could just focus on being a really good film, a really good sci-fi.
Yeah.
The only thing is that I found it a tiny bit too long, maybe. Like it just felt a bit long, but I also think like it was necessary. I think there's a lot it's trying to do and say in one film, and obviously it's setting up a lot for whenever the next part is coming out, which is probably a long time. But the thing was like I wished I had seen more plot lines follow through, but I also understand that they have to set up for franchise, so it's not the point, to just conclude every story arc within the same movie. But it sort of left me wondering a bit too much, especially because I think it's going to be quite a long wait for the
Yeah.
next movies.
It certainly is, man. I'm looking forward to seeing his next movie as A Complete Unknown, which is out next month in UK cinemas. I think it's already out in the US, or it's just about to come out. So that's June Part 2. What's your next film, Clotilda?
My next film is Maria.
Okay.
I really liked it. I think Angelina Jolie is so good in it. I'm surprised she's not being sort of mentioned more in the best actress category because I really think this is sort of her like the performance of her career. Also, it's like if you've seen any other Popular Reigns movie, you would know that they're very much focused on the one character, so they're called the one actress as well. It feels like she's carrying the whole weight of the movie because of how it's structured. It's a lot of just her as well, or close-ups on her, and she just does it beautifully. I think she's so good in it. I think it's a role that really allows her to play with the craft and also kind of show many different sides to the character. I love that, and I also love that it wasn't just your sort of typical biopic that tells you the story from beginning to end. Obviously, that's not what Popular Rain does, and in this film, it starts the story at the very end of Maria's life, but then kind of takes us back and forward as he wishes. Really, there's no kind of set structure to it, but I think that's what makes it interesting because you do find out about her life, but kind of at Maria's pace, whatever she wants to tell at the pace she wants to tell it. And I thought that was a really good way to bring the audience in. I also like that they used the actual Maria Callas recordings,
Mm.
which I don't think was a given, but because she's known for her voice, it would have been, I feel like it would have been a suicide mission to do otherwise.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that was a choice that was made, and I think it adds a lot to the film. If you've liked Jackie and if you've liked Spencer, I personally actually like Spencer that much, but if you like his movies and like kind of what he's trying to do with them, I think you will like Maria. It sort of feels like the third installment of this kind of like unconventional trilogy. I think even the director sort of acknowledged that the three films really mirror each other in the sense that they're focused on one female character and they're not entirely a biopic, but they tell their stories in some way. So I think if you like that sort of film, then Maria's a very good addition. Like I said, I didn't really like Spencer, so for me it's even better than that. I would, I would, I wouldn't say it's as good as Jackie because I really like Jackie, but it definitely is up there for me in his filmography.
Yeah, I've unfortunately not seen Maria. I tried to
He
see
comes out in January as well
yeah,
in the UK.
yeah, I've not actually seen Maria. I tried to see it just before Christmas. There was an unlimited screening, but my work schedule was I was unfortunately I was working at 4 a.m. that day, and the time I got home was like 5 p.m. It was on at 7:30, and I think it's a 2 hour film, and it would have been after 10, so I would have been up. I would have fell asleep in the screen. It would have been worth it. So I'm going to wait to see it when it comes out in January. I think it's on Netflix already if you live in the US, but it's a
Yeah.
cinema film here in the UK. It's Studio Canal UK. It's releasing it. Yeah, it's interesting to see Angelina Jolie actually in something that's getting considered as an awards contender. It's been a long time. I know it sounds weird, and I'm of similar age of Angelina Jolie, and I still think of her as Tomb Raider, Lara Croft. I know it sounds silly. It's probably the film she's probably more famous for, and yeah, I will probably go and see it. Yeah, I didn't mind Spencer. I did like his film, which had Gail Benal Garcia. Apologies if I said that the wrong way around. Which came out about 10 years ago, 10, 15, 10, 12 years ago. I haven't seen his other film, which was the Condes, which is on Netflix, the one about
Oh,
the
did watch.
vampire. Yeah, it looks an absolute bonkers film.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because he always does it. Is it Chile? Is it Chile from Peru? Chile. General Pinochet, I think it is in it, as a vampire. Yeah, I don't mind. He's sort of hit and miss with me. I did like Jackie, probably one of Natalie Portman's best films. I completely forgot he directed it. So yeah, I will look out for that. So for my next film is a film where there's a song in it. Since I've seen the film, I can't get it out of my head. But that's not in a bad way. That is the song Air We Breathe by the Hollies, because it was played in the film The Heretic, which stars Hugh Grant. The song's absolutely brilliant. It plays a big part in the film. And if you've seen the trailer, it's in the trailer as well. So this film, psychological thriller stroke horror. And Clotilde, have you seen this film?
Now, I don't know if it's going to be too scary for me because I'm not very good with horrors. I do want to see it though.
Oh, it's not one of those sort of horrors where it's a jump scare. There is an odd jump scare bit in it. It is when it plays on your sort of psyche, it's a psychological side of things. It sort of plays on the dread, a sense of dread throughout it. And if when somebody says it's your typical A24 film, obviously here in the UK it's film distributors that released it. When you say 24 film, horror film, you've got an idea where it's from. So it's directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who are known for the film 65 with Adam Driver. But I believe they also are the script writers for A Quiet Place. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I'm definitely sure they are. So this stars Sophie Thatcher, who people might know from The Bogeyman. A lot of the Bogeyman crew are on this film as well, and Chloe East. So they're Mormon missionaries and are home to save someone, and they're going door to door, face to face through this little town. So the chap to the door of Mr. 8, who's Hugh Grant, basically ensnares him into his house. So he ensnares him in the house because saying his wife is cooking some cherry pie in there. The old sort of typical American thing. He says, let's have a chat. I'm glad you come, he says. And mental game of cat and mouse. When it comes to a psychological cat and mouse game here, where he's constantly testing the faith of the two sisters. It's a film I would say don't judge the book by its cover. It is when you watch it. It's what it does well is it's a very intelligent film. It shows that horrors don't need to be just the jump scares or some slasher or some big monster. Those monsters come in different shapes and sizes. And that thing of the don't judge a book by its cover, that is to do with all of the characters, not just Hugh Grant's character. That's all I'll say about that. And the sort of thing with the song, it's sort of do with, I don't know if you remember, if you heard about the Radiohead Hollies. The Hollies sued Radiohead for Creep, which is a riff in it. And I think vocally, forgive me if I'm wrong, Tom York may have sounded a little bit, used a tone that's very similar to this song. But also Lana Del Rey gets mentioned in this as well. She went through a lawsuit as well. It starts with he's challenging him on everything to do with a religion, but at the same time he's bringing in other religions. It's like a theological lodging in nightmare, in terms of religions, and the sisters are getting very nervous or want to leave, and they say at no point he says you can just leave, but the door's locked, and then he goes to the point, okay, I'll let you leave. So he goes through to the other room, and they sort of follow him room, into this like a study. It's got all these posters, memorabilia, books, you name it. There's also two doors. It also looks like a little shrine, a little church. And he offers them two doors. You take that one, I'll take one of them, I'll take you out the back door, take you around the front, and out you go. At the same time, the way he was keeping them there was the weather was getting really bad. The sisters were getting really nervous. We really need to go. Just let us walk out the door. We won't say anything. But if you don't by a certain time, our brother, who sort of runs the congregation that they're at, will come looking for us, type of thing. And it gets more and more and more challenging and more challenging and more. And then he goes, right, you need to take one of the doors. And this is when they take this door, this is when the horror starts. I won't get into much detail about exactly what that horror is. This is when the film goes in a completely different direction, a direction many people won't be expecting. It's a roller coaster ride. It's a very smart movie. Brilliant casting as Hugh Grant as this psychotic person. And obviously when Hugh Grant met, he was doing these sort of your typical rom-coms, like your Four Weddings and Your Funeral, and then eventually did Paddington 2, which I think in Paddington 2 he's the best villain, one of the best villains in villain history. He's the best thing about it. And then Ferreri's started to do really, really darker roles and that, and this is one of his roles. They let his character grow, and the girls they're dipping really polite, but also at the same time they're getting really nervous. They really want to leave. Don't get me wrong, it does lose its pace a wee bit at one point. It's one of those films you really, really need to see. It's a little bit, not in the sense of like Conclave, but it sort of might be challenging your testing your faith. Yeah, it is testing your faith, but it's testing what you actually believe in. Do we all believe in the one God or goddess? Is it something that's been put in our minds type thing through science and nature and books, type of thing? I could go on and on about this movie, Clotilde, but it's absolutely fantastic, nail-biting film, It's in a single location as well, which makes it really claustrophobic. And every time as the girls think they're getting away, it hits you with another question and the walls get closer to you, if you know what I mean. Absolutely brilliant film. That is Heretic. Clotilda, do you have another movie to talk about?
I have a last movie. It's Hard Truths. I really liked it. It's by Mike Lee. And I saw it at the London Film Festival. I think it was towards the end, but I remembered that at first I wasn't entirely sure, especially about the ending. I don't want to spoil it, but I felt like it was very open-ended. At first, I just kept thinking that it wasn't sort of finishing the kind of narrative plots that we were following. I thought about it more, and I think it just makes sense. Like the more I think about it, the more I feel like it's the only possible ending. So yeah, I'm very happy with it in the end. I'm not very happy. There is that film, but
Yeah.
I think it's really good, and I feel like if I watched it again, I would like it even more. I think it's one of those films that the more you think about it and the more you like, which is a really good thing. For me, the most impressive thing was the performances, but also specifically Maria Jean-Baptiste as the main character. I really think she should get nominated. She's just so good. I was talking about this with one of my friends, and she said any clip from the film, you could just pick a random one, and it would work as sort of like her Oscar nomination clip.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to how good she is throughout the film, and I think her character holds a lot of emotions at first, and we only sort of get the bigger picture as the film goes on. And she does a really good job at portraying that and portraying her different emotions without sort of like being too much. I really like how the film deals with such sensitive topics really gently, but also without judgment. It just feels like just a depiction of what life is for these people. I also like how the characters get a bit more explored as the film goes on. I think at first you have an idea of them, and then the film goes on and you kind of change your mind and learn a lot about their backstories, especially for Pansy, the main character, and her sister, and their relationship. It feels like you leave with a completely different idea from the beginning, and I love how that is, how the film makes us go through it because it's very organic, but also done really well, I think, from a storytelling point of view. Yeah, I loved it. I think also like everyone was really good. Ensemble wise, they really felt to me like a family, especially there's a big scene with all of them together. And that one was one of my favorites because they really feel like you can sort of feel this family dynamic, and it's a bit awkward. But I think they did a really good job at that. Very good film. I'm very happy with it. Although it's a sad film. I did say all the films in my list were gonna be sad. And they are.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. It's out, I believe, in the 31st of January.
Yes, these are all January films. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and it's another Studio Canal film. It's
Mm.
Mike Leigh. If you know Mike Leigh films, you know what you're going to. I think the last one I saw was the one with Timothy Spall was in it. Get the name of it, but I believe Jean Baptiste. She's been in a few of his films. She was actually in. Do you remember her in June Part 2? She was in that.
No, what's she actually? What's she do?
You know the bit where Rebecca Ferguson goes to the other place where they tell her not to go to, and and
Oh
she
God.
and she's getting the worms. She's training the baby worms.
Ah, you're so right. It was her. Oh man, I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah, there you go.
Good. I'm
Yeah,
happy. Good year
yeah.
for her.
As I said, if you like Mike Leigh, sounds like you're going to like this one. I have one final film. It's a film which we didn't review on the podcast, but was reviewed on the website. It was reviewed first at Fright Fest, and the review was that good. It's now out to own on Blu-ray, and it's on the Blu-ray cover, the quote, and that is Best Darling. And that film, a film that caught everyone by surprise. It's directed by G.T. Molyneux. Clotilde, have you seen this film?
No, but now I want to watch it.
It also has that, the actor Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh,
Yep, he's actually the cinematographer in this. That was his
oh, that's
debut.
good.
He shot it in 35mm. So
Oh wow.
it stars Willa Fitzgerald. People might know her from the Reacher
Hmm.
and the Scream series, and Gallagher, who is actually in Smile and Smile 2. He was only in Smile 2 for a little bit. So this is, how would I describe it? It's a very clever, relentless full ride, and it takes you in very, very much different directions you don't expect. That happens all over one night, and it's a one night stand. It spirals out of control into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. You can call it a horror, you can call it a thriller. Basically, what happens is Willa Fitzgerald and Kilgallagher, he's a cop. Will Fitzgerald, two of them are having a bit of a one night stand. They're sort of chatting away at each other. And let's just say it's a film. What the film does really well, it takes you in one direction, then suddenly swerves and goes in the opposite. It's a very non-linear film, if you know what I mean there. But it's presented in 6 chapters, but they're not all presented in the same order. So you might start with chapter 1, go to chapter 6, go to chapter 2, 3, 4, so on. And I think that's what it really works well here. And it plays on the mystery of everything. Ribisi's actual cinematography is very hypnotic in the sense, and obviously it's got a kaleidoscope of colours, all the reds, there's usually reds for danger, the greens, and everything in between. And at the same time, the colour scheme never really feels fake. It's not like you know what I mean, Clotilde, with your noir, especially your neo-noir, they have a lot of the reds in that. It slightly plays in that sort of sense, I find, And what it does, the narrative in this is very, very tight, and it helps obviously the film to keep the mystery going and play to the end. It is a very, very dark, twisted film. Is it a feminist film? Yeah, it is. It's a very dark one, but same could be said about the sort of film. It's a message of sexual freedom in there as well. And the leading two are very great performances in there. And it also has Ed Begley Jr. in there and Barbara Hershey in there as well. They're old hippies, and they play a pivotal part of the actual story. It's not a smooth ride, but it's one to strap in. Very unsettling film, but it definitely will entertain you. So maybe Clotilde, maybe want to write it on your list to see films to see. So is that you for all your films?
That is me for the films. I also now have more films to add to my list.
Yep. Do you have any films you just want to mention the title, like honourable films? Is there any films you just want to mention the name of it? Whilst
There
you're there.
are a couple of honorable mentions. I will say Bird, because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And
Yeah.
I think it's been talked about enough. The piano lesson, I thought that was great. I heard some criticism. I just thought it was great. I also really like Flow, which kind of goes back to what we mentioned at the beginning about animation and
Yeah,
silence and sort of the power of drawing. Love that film. My Old Ass, I thought it was so funny and so sad at the same time. It was great. I loved it. And Nickel Boys, also very sad.
which is out next week in the UK cinemas. Well, Clotilde, I don't know if you remember, I'm not going to talk much about it because we reviewed it very much last year. And I did say on last year's edition of this, the best films, I'm going to mention it this year. So I thought I'd do honourable. All of Us Are Strangers, because it was a 2024 film for the UK, but we saw it in 23. The Substance, Corley Vijay's film, absolutely bonkers, but in a good entertaining way. And it's a long time since we've said Demi Moore being in a good film. And Margaret Qualley's absolutely fantastic in it as well. And I don't want to sound rude or anything, but her breasts, they're seen in it, they're not hers. She actually told everyone herself that. Love Lies Bleeding, Rose Glasses, sort of gay noir, queer noir. I reviewed that in a take two. You get the review in there. Late Night with the Devil, despite having a bit of AI involved in this, I actually really liked it. It is a slow burner, but it goes in other ways. Other films, Lee, Civil War, The Bike Riders, Cuckoo, and Society Snow are other films that I all get honourable mentions. And there you have, folks. That is part one. That is our best films of the Chronicle of 2024. Coming right up will be the next part, and that's the worst films, and we'll see you soon.